Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. You've been asking for more home intrusion stories, and honestly, I get why. Because there's nothing more terrifying than realizing the place that's supposed to keep you safe doesn't. Tonight, we have 3 stories that happened right here in Asia. A babysitter in Kowloon who discovered she wasn't alone in the flat. A university student in Taipei who came home at 3 a.m. to something waiting outside. And a woman in Osaka whose delivery was never supposed to arrive. These are all true accounts submitted to me, with some details changed for privacy. But the rest, exactly as it happened. Story 1. The babysitter's worst nightmare. This first story comes from Mei Ling, a 17-year-old secondary school student in Hong Kong. At the time, she babysat often to save up for her DSE prep classes. Smart, responsible, the kind of girl parents trusted. It was Friday, November 15th, around 8:30 p.m. Mei Ling was looking after 2 twin boys, I'll call them Y and Locke, in their family's flat in Kowloon Tong. The parents had gone out for their wedding anniversary dinner. Mei had babysat for them before. She knew this home well, a roomy apartment in an older high-rise, the kind with echoing hallways, iron gates over every door, and windows that looked out onto narrow alleys. That night felt ordinary. The boys had just finished watching a Pokemon VCD. They were upstairs in the bathroom, brushing their teeth. Mei was sitting in the living room, scrolling her phone. Outside, the sounds of the city drifted faintly in. Traffic on the flyover, the hiss of a noodle stall closing for the night, the muffled Cantonese chatter of neighbors playing late-night mahjong. And then, the doorbell rang. It startled her. Nobody was supposed to come. The parents had made that clear. No deliveries, no visitors. She crept to the heavy steel gate and peered through the peephole. A man stood there, middle-aged, wearing what looked like a utility uniform, clipboard in hand. He rang again. "Evening, Miss. I'm here to check the gas meters. Quick inspection only." Something was off. In Hong Kong, gas companies send notices in advance, and never this late at night. Mei asked through the metal gate, "Do you have ID?" The man shifted uncomfortably, didn't hold anything up, just repeated, "Won't take long. Need to check tonight." The way he stared, unblinking, pressing close to the gate, made her skin crawl. She replied firmly, "The owners aren't home. Please come back later." The man didn't argue. Instead, he turned and walked down the corridor, but he didn't head for the lift lobby. Mei darted to the kitchen window and peeked down toward the back of the building. She froze. The man was circling along the fire escape, peering into windows, testing security grills. And then, rattle, 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 the handle of the rear service door, the one maids once used in old flats, was shaking. Someone was trying it. Mei grabbed her Nokia and was about to dial 999 when the entire flat went dark. The hum of the fridge cut off, the lights snapped out. The only glow came from the twins' Pokemon nightlight upstairs, casting warped shadows down the hallway. Her stomach dropped. In Hong Kong apartments, the circuit breaker is always outside, in the public corridor. Someone had switched it off deliberately. And then came the sound she dreaded, the rear door creaking open. Mei bolted up the stairs 2 steps at a time. The twins, wide-eyed, asked why the lights had gone out. She forced a calm smile. Let's play hide and seek, okay? Quiet game. Follow me. She herded them into the master bedroom, locked the wooden door, then shoved the heavy Chinese wardrobe against it. Her hands shook so badly she nearly dropped her phone. On the other end of the 999 call, she whispered, "Someone broke into the flat. They cut the power. They're inside." The operator told her to stay quiet, stay hidden. Downstairs, footsteps echoed, slow, deliberate. Every creak of the old wooden floorboards sent chills through her. She knew exactly where the sounds were. The intruder was moving from the kitchen to the living room. Closer. The twins clutched each other, silent tears on their faces. Then, the footsteps stopped. The silence pressed down heavier than the noise. After what felt like hours, faint sirens rose from the street. Red and blue light flickered against the curtains. May barely breathed until pounding on the front door announced the police. But when officers entered, the flat was empty. The service door stood open. On the balcony, footprints smudged the dust. Cigarette butts lay near the window grills. The breaker box outside had been switched off. Whoever it was had known exactly where to find it. Nothing was stolen, no locks forced, no damage, except for the silence they'd left behind. When the parents returned, the father walked the whole flat with a torch, but found nothing. Neighbors hadn't noticed anyone unusual. No car, no stranger. May never babysat there again. What haunted her most wasn't the darkness, or even the footsteps. It was the way that man had stared through the gate, eyes flat, as if he already knew the children were inside. Some nights, when she walks past that block, she swears she sees a figure smoking by the service entrance, watching the windows. Story 2. Home Alone at 3 a.m. This story comes from Jun Hao, a 22-year-old university student in Taipei. It happened during winter break while his parents were traveling in Europe. For the first time in years, he had the family house all to himself. Junhao worked nights at a small diner near Shilin Night Market. He usually clocked out close to 3 a.m., catching the last bus home through the quiet streets. He didn't mind. The pay was steady, and besides, someone had to keep an eye on the house while his parents were gone. On Tuesday night, December 18th, he returned home at 3:15 a.m. Winter in Taipei has this heavy stillness at that hour. The scooters that usually roar through the alleys are gone. The night markets shuttered. Only the hum of vending machines and the occasional bark of a stray dog remain. He slipped off his shoes at the Genkan, locked the front door. His parents had drilled that habit into him, and went straight to the kitchen. The whole house stayed dark, except for one dim fluorescent tube over the sink. He made a sandwich, scrolled his phone. It felt routine, safe. He'd lived here his whole life. He knew every creak in the wooden floorboards, every time the water pipes coughed. He thought he knew what silence sounded like in this house, until he heard it. Click. Junhao froze mid-bite. That sound was unmistakable. The metal handle of the front door turning slowly. Not rattling, not fumbling. Someone was trying to turn it without being heard. His sandwich slipped from his hands. He stood perfectly still, heart hammering. Click. Click. Who would be at his door at 3:20 a.m. on a Tuesday? He crept to the living room window. Pulling the curtain back just a sliver, he saw a figure on the porch. The streetlight behind them cast their shape in shadow. No face, just the outline of a person standing too still. Before Junhao could react, the figure stepped off the porch, slowly, calmly, not leaving, circling. He darted to the side window. The figure passed through the garden, checking along the walls, brushing against shutters. Junhao's breath caught as he realized something. His kitchen blinds, the very ones he'd stood in front of just minutes earlier, shifted. A faint movement, as if a hand had pressed against them from outside. Whoever this was had already seen him. They knew he was home. Junhao crawled low across the tatami in the hallway, clutching his phone. He reached for the switch, plunging the kitchen into darkness. The world went dead silent. Then came a new sound. Scratch, scratch, scratch at the back door. Like metal on metal. Not knocking, not pushing. Someone was trying keys, testing them, one by one. Junhao whispered into his phone. 110, emergency. Someone's trying to break into my house. They're at the back door. The operator told him to stay hidden until officers arrived. Junhao squeezed himself into his parents' wardrobe with an old baseball bat. Heart racing so loudly he swore the intruder could hear it. The scratching at the lock grew more frantic. Angry. Then silence. 2 minutes before the police arrived, the sound stopped. No footsteps, no scratching, nothing. When officers swept the property, the intruder was gone. But evidence remained. Fresh scratch marks on both the front and back locks. Footprints in the soil, outside nearly every window. Cigarette ash by the garden fence. Still warm. It was clear. Someone had done a full circuit of the house, checking every possible way in. Someone who wasn't improvising. They had tools. They had time. And they had patience. Neighbors told police they'd seen a dark sedan parked on the street that week. Not belonging to anyone on the block. No license plate remembered. What unsettled Junhao most wasn't the silence, or even the scratches. It was his cat. Earlier that evening, before he left for work, she'd been restless, pacing from window to window, fur bristling, staring into the dark garden, as if something already lingered there. The police suggested the intruder might have been watching the house for days, learning when he left and when he returned, maybe even following him home from work. Junhao barely slept the rest of the break. He asked his cousin to stay over until his parents returned, but every time he passed the kitchen window at night, he thought about that shifting blind, about the shadow standing perfectly still in the streetlight, and he wondered, how long had they been watching? Story 3. The Delivery That Never Came. This last story comes from Aiko, a 28-year-old graphic designer in Osaka. She lived alone in the upstairs unit of an old wooden duplex, the kind of traditional house split in two. Her landlord, an older man, stayed in the ground floor unit, but that week, he was away on a business trip. It was a quiet Thursday afternoon, March 21st, around 2:45 p.m. Aiko sat at her desk, headphones on, working on a client design project. Outside, the alley was unusually still. Neighbors were at work, shutters drawn, only the faint smell of takoyaki grease lingering from the food stand on the corner. She was expecting a delivery that day, some art supplies from Amazon Japan. She'd ordered plenty before. Usually the drivers knocked politely once, left the package at the door, and slipped away. Efficient, predictable. So when her door suddenly thundered with 3 heavy knocks, bang, bang, Bang! She nearly jumped out of her chair. She pulled off her headphones. A man's voice called through the door. "Delivery! Need you to sign." Aiko went to the door and peered through the people. A man stood there in what looked like a brown courier uniform, clipboard in hand, but something immediately felt wrong. Delivery drivers in Japan almost always step back politely from the door, bow slightly, wait at a respectful distance. This man was pressed close. Too close. In 2 years of deliveries, Aiko had never once needed to sign for anything from Amazon. Her stomach tightened. Through the steel latch, she called, "Please just leave it by the door." The man's voice replied, "Can't do that. Need your signature. You'll have to come down." Come down? Her flat was on the 2nd floor. Why would she need to go downstairs? She asked, "Can you show me the package?" Instead of lifting anything, he repeated, more insistent, "Just open the door, sign quickly, then I'll go." The tone of his voice wavered. The first time, it had been deep, rehearsed. Now, higher, strained, like someone forgetting to keep up an act. Aiko's unease grew. She hurried to her bedroom window, which overlooked the street. Normally, a Yamato or Sagawa delivery truck would be parked nearby. But the road was empty. No vans, no bikes, nothing. She returned to the door. "I don't see your truck. Where's your vehicle?" A pause. Then, "It's parked down the street. Hurry up, I don't have all day." Her hand trembled on the latch. Every instinct screamed at her not to open it. She whispered through the crack, "I'm not opening the door. Leave it." Silence. At first, she thought he'd gone. The people showed no one. But then she heard it. The creak of wood outside, not on the stairs going down, but footsteps circling the house. Heart pounding, she darted to the kitchen window. From above, she saw him, walking around the landlord's ground floor unit. He peered up at her windows, then crouched, pressing against the basement shutters. Testing. Prodding. She grabbed her phone and dialed 110. "Someone's pretending to be a delivery driver," she whispered. "Now they're trying to break into the building." The operator kept her calm as she squeezed herself into the closet, clutching the phone. The scraping downstairs grew louder, metal against wood, then a crack. The man had forced open the landlord's basement window. From above, Aiko could hear him inside the house now. Drawers opening, closet doors sliding shut, searching, not for valuables, for something. She realized something else, something worse. The house had an internal staircase connecting the landlord's unit to hers. Few people knew about it, but if he found it, he'd be inside her flat within minutes. The operator told her police were on their way. Aiko pressed herself against the back wall of her closet, breath shallow, pulse roaring in her ears. Then she heard it. Footsteps on the hidden staircase. Coming up. The pounding on the main entrance downstairs switched, this time louder, urgent. Not the intruder, the police. By the time officers burst inside, the house was empty again. But they found the signs. A basement window pried open with tools, broken glass on the floor, drawers rifled through, closets open. Nothing stolen, just disturbed. When Aiko described the fake courier, the brown uniform, the clipboard, the voice, the officers checked with Yamato, Sagawa, Amazon. No delivery was scheduled for her that day. Days later, her landlord returned and checked with his property manager. He learned something chilling. A week earlier, someone had called the management office pretending to be a courier service. They asked about the upstairs tenant, Aiko. They wanted to know when she was usually home. This hadn't been random. Someone had studied her, researched her, waited until the landlord was gone. Aiko moved out 2 months later. To this day, she never opens her door to a delivery unless she can see the truck parked outside, and even then, she double-checks the tracking app first. What still haunts her most isn't the fake uniform or the broken window. It's the voice. How it slipped halfway through the conversation. Like whoever he was had practiced what to say, but forgot how to keep the mask on. And the sound of those footsteps climbing the hidden stairs. Proof that if the police had arrived just a few minutes later, the intruder would have been inside her room. The most unsettling thing about these stories isn't the footsteps, the scratching, or the voices at the door. It's the planning, the patience, the way someone can slip into the quiet rhythms of your life, unnoticed, until the moment they choose to step forward. In Kowloon, the breaker box clicked off and the flat went dark. A game of shadows where children slept upstairs. In Taipei, a figure circled in silence, as if mapping the walls of the house from memory, knowing exactly when the student came home. And in Osaka, a knock at the door sounded almost ordinary, polite words wrapped around something false, a mask that cracked just long enough to show the hunger beneath. What makes this horror unique in Asia is how ordinary it all feels. Here, you expect neighbors to notice, but no one looks. You expect schedules to be safe, but that's exactly what they use against you. And you expect rituals, the knock, the signature, the polite uniform, to mean trust. Instead, they become traps, because in the end, the intruder doesn't need to break a lock to frighten you. All they need to do is know you, your habits, your silences, your smallest mistakes. And when the moment comes, when the doorbell rings or the handle turns, the question is never who they are. The question is, how long have they already been waiting?